It's an animal that's both symbolic and synonymous with Australia, and it's even cute when it's got an itch. But as the government of New South Wales, a state in southeastern Australia, moves to increase protections for koalas, some critics say it'll badly hurt the nation's logging industry. According to environmentalists, disease, deforestation, drought, and bushfires have taken a toll, reducing koala numbers by more than 50% in New South Wales since the start of the century. To help protect them, the state's government has decided to ban logging across an area of 435,000 acres. That's a space about the size of Houston, Texas. Supporters say the Great Koala National Park will help turn around the plight of koalas. But while a logging union says everyone wants to see the animals thrive, the area the government's protecting is bigger than experts suggested it should be, and that the law will destroy an entire logging industry instead of finding a solution that both protects the animals and protects the jobs. Australia's government says it'll help pay loggers' salaries and medical costs and train them to work in other areas. The AFP news agency reports that 6 timber mills and several hundred workers will be affected. Authorities don't know how many koalas live across Australia. Estimates range from between 1 or 200,000 to 500,000. I'm Azuz, and this is the world from A to Z, your nonpartisan source for international events. One of the stories we're monitoring concerns military tensions in Europe, tensions that spread beyond the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine. Earlier this week, Russian drones participating in that war flew over the Central European nation of Poland, and fighter jets from NATO shot them down. NATO is the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. It's an alliance of 30 European countries, including Poland, plus the US and Canada. NATO members have a military agreement that an attack on one of them is an attack on all of them. But because Ukraine isn't a part of NATO, Russia's invasion there in 2022 didn't trigger a broader war with NATO members. Still, they've been increasingly concerned that Russia's fight in Ukraine could spread to NATO member countries. And when several Russian drones flew into Polish airspace early Wednesday, NATO took action to eliminate them. Russia blames Poland for spreading, quote, myths in order to escalate the war in Ukraine. Russia also says it did not intend to target any sites inside Poland. But in response to the airspace violation, several European countries and members of NATO said they'd send additional troops and military equipment to Poland and areas around it. The BBC reports that Russian aircraft have flown through NATO airspace before. The question is whether Wednesday's incident was intentional, a way to provoke Poland and its allies, or if the Russian drones flew there by accident or carelessness. Whatever the case, Europe is raising its guard.
A world of knowledge. Which of these astronauts made history on September the 12th, 1992? John Glenn, Mae Jemison, Sally Ride, Jim Lovell. This was the date of the first space flight by the first African-American woman to become an astronaut. Her name is Mae Jemison.
On this date in world history. September 12, 2011 was when the National September 11th Memorial and Museum opened in New York City. That was the day after the 10th anniversary of the terrorist attacks. Complete coverage of what happened in those attacks is in yesterday's show at worldatz.org. On this date in 1940, a pet dog fell down a hole in Lascaux, France. 4 teenagers went to get it back and discovered an extensive network of cave paintings believed to date back thousands of years. The Lascaux Cave paintings are no longer open to the public, but the animals they depict have been extensively studied by archaeologists. And a Soviet space capsule named Luna 2 launched on this date in 1959. There were a lot of space launches going on back then, but Luna 2 became the first man-made object to land on the moon.
You may not want to think about the viruses that live on shower heads and toothbrushes, but researchers did it for you.
It's unsurprising that we find them there because we find a bunch of bacteria basically everywhere. But what was surprising is how many different viruses we found and how different they looked from anything that we had ever seen before.
Microbiologist Erica Hartman led a study which found something called bacteriophage all over these two environments. While that sounds bad, she says these are not viruses that make you sick. Instead, they infect bacteria, and these could potentially be used to save lives.
For a long time, we've relied on antibiotics to be able to treat infections and save lives. But right now, antimicrobial resistance is one of the biggest public health challenges that we're facing globally. So there's a lot of hope that we can leverage things like bacteriophage to help treat these infections that we can no longer treat with antibiotic drugs.
Hartman says the hope is that these phages, or something learned from them, will aid in the development of better drugs or improved biotechnologies.
We need microbes to, in our gut, help us digest our food, on our skin, help us to ward off pathogens. And it's actually a really good thing that we are exposed to microbes from time to time.
I'm Mandy Gaither.
We've now mentioned all 50 states this season, and we're going to keep things rolling with Henry W. Moore School in Candia, New Hampshire. Mr. Pritchard's class is there, and it's the home of the Lancers. Mr. Bell says his class has been waiting on that sweet shout-out, so here it is. Clover High School, the Blue Eagles are in Clover, South Carolina. And don't think this is a typo. This is how they spell Friendship High School in Wolfforth, Texas, where the Tigers are watching in Mrs. Stevens' class. What day is it?
September 12th is National Hug and High Five Day, when a simple gesture is intended to promote joy and comfort to others.
The seething sea ceaseth, and thus the seething sea sufficeth us. Doesn't exactly roll off the tongue, but that's the whole point. And getting tongue-tied with phrases like it both continues a centuries-old tradition and helps us better master the words we speak.
Tongue twisters like these have amused and confounded folks for centuries. We can trace some elements of phrases, like Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, first coined in 1813, and how much wood could a woodchuck chuck, taken from a 1903 Broadway production. The exact origins of the tricky twisters are unknown, but they became popular in the 1800s, emerging in elocution books as a way to hone pronunciation skills. And from there, more people latched onto the fun of tongue twisters, creating new ones like when one slick snake slid up the slide, the other slick snake slid down. But the fun of tongue twisters hasn't hindered their helpfulness. Just struggling through the funky phrases can strengthen your pronunciation skills. Tongue twisters are difficult because they use alliterations, or similar but still distinct sounds, and verbalizing such phrases requires fine control of the tongue and vocal muscles. Red lorry, yellow lorry makes your tongue rapidly switch between the sound with the tongue drawn back and the ol sound with the tongue at the front of the mouth. And let's not forget all the assonants, when a vowel sound is repeated in several words, crammed between slightly different vowel sounds. It seems simple, but a lot of effort goes into clearly voicing sounds like and And like any muscle, the more our speech muscles train, the stronger they get.
Of course, if they're not smooth like butter or batter, biters might get bitter, if not better, going sour on the sweetest tongue-in-cheek tongue twisters. But whether you wish to wash your Irish wristwatch, sail your toy boat, or see how she sells seashells by the seashore, most tongue twisters are all in good taste buds. I'm Koala, Azuz, and Fridays are awesome. We wish you a wonderful weekend and look forward to seeing you Monday on The World from A to Z.